All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's live for October 5th in America, October 6th in Australia. Um, Good to see everyone here. Yeah, if anyone can, please say hello and tell me where you're calling in from. Oh, goodness. Wow. So there's a chat by Copper's Carnivore Kitchen. Thank you very much for the super chat, by the way. It's not letting me bring it up. Where is this? Oh, there we go. Oh, Chicago Bears legend Dick Buttkiss died today. That's crazy. He's absolutely one of my favorite players ever. Rest in peace. A favorite quote: "I did what I was supposed to do, and shit. I had fun knocking the shit out of people." Reminds me of another great I respect tremendously. Thank you for all you do for us. Well, thank you very much. That's really sad. The Dick Buttkiss died. That guy was definitely one of my heroes. I mean, when I was growing up and playing rugby, I would watch his highlight reels to get me charged up for a game, and then try to just level people just like him. I mean, that was exactly what I tried to do. Dick Buttkiss, Super Crunch. That guy was absolutely amazing, and it was just so fun to watch him play and watch his highlights. The guy was just a beast, and well, that's really sad. I'm very sorry to hear that that he passed away. Gosh, I didn't even hear that. I'll have to look into that a bit more. Um, well, let me just bring this up here. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining. If people have questions, do please try to uh, put question in front, and then I can see it more readily and try to get to it. And of course, obviously, it's easier when people put a super chat out. It's more noticeable, and I do try to get all of those. But I try to answer questions as well. But uh, so don't feel that you have to put one in, but it's obviously easier when to see them like that. Um, and yes, we have moderators now, so hopefully we won't run into those weird issues that we did before. So scrolling down here, just got a couple questions coming in from Jose. Hi, Anthony. Is it okay to eat bone marrow every day as a source of fat, or is it like liver, where one ought to eat in moderation? I think bone marrow is fine. That traditionally people did eat bone marrow whenever they came across it. I don't know of any reason why you couldn't do it every day, so that should be fine. Um, and it's great. Bone marrow tastes amazing. So I mean, it shouldn't be your sole source of fat. There should be coming in from other things. But no, I think that's fine to get bone marrow, every day like that. That's totally fine. Looks like there's a couple of people from Washington. It's great. From Gloria from Shank from Tacoma. Nice to see you. Anchorage. I love Alaska. I really want to spend more time there. That place is absolutely amazing. And Quebec. Hello. Hello, France de Rebelle. I'm actually going to France today. So Elle and I are going to France to visit or to go see the some of the Rugby World Cup games, going with my best friend Jonathan and his wife and a couple of their kids and a couple of our other rugby friends. And then Mike, how you doing, Mike? Good to see you. And oh, that reminds me, I'll try and make different people moderators. Let's see. Can we get Mike a moderator? Goodness, it's a real pain in the ass to actually find things in here. Where are you? Sorry, I'm just trying to find. There we go. Okay, Mike, you're a moderator, whether you want to be or not. So thank you. Okay, so yeah, there we go. Okay, Sorry, just gonna see. Oh, there we go. Question from Terry. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's very kind of you and very generous. Hi, Dr. Chaffee. Do you wear blue light blocking glasses, and what are my opinion on them? I do actually. So, Bon Charge is a company here in Perth, actually, and I've spoken to the owner there, and we went sort of into detail about the different studies with blue light blocking glasses and the specific bandwidth that you need to block, and it made sense. And people like Dr. Jack Cruz and others have been really um, ardent in their uh, portrayal of how important this stuff is, the circadian rhythm optimization. And so I tried it. I do try to use it in the evenings. I don't use it as much as I should. I mean, really should putting these on basically at dusk. And but I do put them on towards bedtime. Generally, it's like 2 hours before you go to sleep. You put them on, and I do find that I really do get very tired, and I go to sleep very naturally, and so that's good, and I find that I get very good sleep from that. I can try to put an affiliate code in there. I haven't. I don't know if I've signed that up yet, but I think it's a good idea. So I do it, and it has actually helped me. So yeah, so people can try that. I think it's a good idea, though. I want to look more into the whole circadian rhythm and light side of things, and get Dr. Cruz on the podcast as well, and have a more in-depth discussion with him, because it's something I'm getting more and more aware of, and is probably in the whole health and lifestyle optimization side of things. That's definitely going to be part of that, is your circadian rhythm. It's very important to our overall health, as our hormonal health, obviously. So yeah, I think that's probably a good idea to wear those things after dark, especially if you're on a screen. And so at night, if I'm on a screen, I've got those things on, or I try to anyway. Molly Malone, thank you for the super chat. I'm not seeing a question with it, but I'll scroll down, see if there is one. There we go. Question. Thank you, Doc. BIL, 61-year-old male, 160 pounds, 5'10", diagnosed with hernia, scoliosis, tinnitus, headache. Chiropractor says tinnitus and headache caused by scoliosis. Don't know why that would be, except that maybe that's something that he can charge you for. Scoliosis in C1 and C2. Chiropractor also says must be very low fat due to times 2 ApoE4. Well, I don't. Well, the thing is that he may be able to look into things very well, but that's certainly not part of chiropractic training. Is going into that level of medical issues and with your ApoE genes. Either way, you can just look at this from a first principles point of view, which is that regardless of your particular genetic dissimilarities or particularities, you're still a human being, and as a human being, you still have an evolved, species-specific or designed human diet that is optimal for you, as it's optimal for everyone else. It doesn't matter what the genetic variations in a dolphin are. They all eat what dolphins eat. Lions eat what lions eat. Giraffes eat what giraffes eat. Koalas eat what koalas eat. And humans should eat what humans should eat. Now, you can go outside of that, and maybe some gene variations make it easier and safer to go outside of that. But that does not change what is optimal for any species. That is a law of biology. And that is something that in this whole argument and discussion of nutrition has been very much lost. We have completely walked away from the fundamental realities of biology, and people who claim to be biologists, who claim to have degrees in biology, have completely written off biology, and that's wrong. That is the underlying scientific structure that we are working on. And so if you have any sort of studies that disagree with some of these immutable laws of biology, they're wrong. They're flat out wrong. Einstein knew this when he proved something mathematically, or thought he did, and then he looked and said, yeah, this disagrees with this or that, and you experiment with it and goes like, yep, that's not what we're seeing. He threw it out because he was smarter than that. He was smarter than his own, arrogance. And so, someone says, no, but this proves this, that, and the other. If it goes against fundamental reality and the observed phenomena, it's wrong. So, humans are humans. We have a biologically appropriate diet that is optimal for everyone, because that's how it works. If you have a different optimal diet, you're a different species, period. And that goes for us too. Tinnitus is generally from inflammation of the auditory nerves in your head. They have nothing to do with your neck. That's not where those nerves are. Those nerves come off sort of the brainstem towards that area, but not of that joint of the C1, C2 level. Okay, it's up from that. It's on your brainstem. Has nothing to do with a kink in your neck. It has to do with inflammation in that nerve generally, or damage to that nerve. And quite often people going on a keto carnivore diet, really carnivore diet is best. You reduce the inflammation and the tinnitus improves. A lot of people's tinnitus improves. There are different causes of tinnitus. If you have actual damage to the nerve for whatever reason, then maybe not. If you have some sort of structure inside your head pushing on that nerve, irritating that nerve, that's going to cause a problem too. And diet may or may not actually be able to help that. However, a lot of these are just come from inflammation of that nerve, have nothing to do with what he's trying to sell you. And so, I know a lot of chiropractors who don't do that sort of thing, but there are chiropractors who just try to upsell people. And that's part of the business model that they're sold. I have a lot of friends who are chiropractors, and they are really, really, really heavily impressed upon them in school, the business model side of this, and how to make return customers and patients, and basically convince them that they have to be seen 3 days a week for the rest of their life, or they're just going to fall apart. If you had a doctor that said that, if I said that to you, and you said, oh, doc, I have this chest infection and I'm not really feeling well. And I'd say, oh yeah, this is crazy. You're going to have to come to me, and I'm going to have to slap you on your back and do some PT sort of exercises with you and try to get this gunk out 3 days a week, basically until you die. Because or else this is just, you're always going to have this infection. It's never going to go away. It's like, okay, you're going to go to another doctor who maybe knows what the hell they're talking about. So if you have a problem and they can't fix it, if they can't say, hey, here's the treatment and here's the resolution, this is when we're going to get resolution. If they're just going, oh yeah, no, you just have to do this forever, this is a chronic condition that you're going to have for life, maybe get a second opinion. And I wouldn't listen to him about ApoE4, because that's not his specialty, and it's probably inappropriate for him to be speaking about that, whether or not he's actually looked into it privately. Professionally, he's not actually licensed to talk about that. I wouldn't think. And also he's wrong, right? You're still human, and humans eat what humans eat, or they're supposed to anyway. And question from Joseph. Any studies you know of that show if carnivore helps with cluster migraines or intentional tremors? What are your thoughts on keto chow mineral supplement? Thanks for all you do. Well, thank you very much for the super chat, Joseph. Cluster migraines. I don't know of any. Well, I don't know if we've even studied any of these things with carnivore. A lot of these things you have to glean from studies they do on keto diets. And keto diets have 100 years of research on epilepsy and migraines, for instance, and a carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet. So a lot of these things, and there are thousands of studies on ketogenic diets helping improve medical conditions. And so a lot of these things you take from that and say, okay, well, carnivore diet is a ketogenic diet. this should work as well. And actually, I think that in a lot of cases it works better because you're removing out all these other plant toxins that can be detrimental to your health, and you're just sort of removing those as factors as well. So I find that works better for a lot of people for a lot of conditions. As to cluster headache, well, there's a difference between cluster headaches and then migraines. But yes, migraines, yes, there is a lot of data showing that migraines improve on any ketogenic diet. And I would argue that a carnivore diet is the better ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diets work because they're getting you closer to a carnivorous diet, which is our natural evolved diet. And so, yes, there's quite a lot of evidence showing that that's very beneficial, and a lot of people are finding that has helped them as well. Thoughts on keto chow? I've never used it. I've never looked at it, but from what I hear, it is only the mineral element supplements, the electrolyte supplements, and it doesn't have any artificial sweeteners or flavorings. And if that's the case, or they have a version of that's the case, then that would be what I would recommend to people. If you're going to take electrolytes, not everyone needs electrolytes. Some people benefit from them, but not everyone needs them. Most people are just not drinking enough water, especially if they're getting cramps and they're taking a whole bunch of electrolytes and drinking seawater and things like that. They're, man, I'm getting cramps. It's like, right, well, it's not the electrolytes then, obviously, because you're taking electrolytes. You've addressed that and it's not working. So it's something else. And it's almost always dehydration, not enough water. And so, but if you do need electrolytes, that will be the kind that I would get. So like keto chow with no artificial sweeteners or flavorings, or the LMNT with, again, no artificial sweeteners and flavorings. None of these guys sponsor me. Those are just two that I know about. I would not do anything that has artificial sweeteners anyway, or any sweeteners or natural flavorings or any flavorings. It's just electrolytes. Do you want electrolytes? Just get electrolytes. Okay. Let's see. From Marie Blanchard, says, Dr. C, can I get a happy 10th birthday to my son, Michael, and one for me on Saturday? Yeah, well, happy birthday, Michael. I hope that you have a really good day and have a big steak for your birthday dinner. That's what I always had. My mom would always make us a very special meal. She was a fantastic cook, is a fantastic cook. And I would always ask for just a massive steak, sometimes with like a béarnaise sauce or something like that, which is, which you can do carnivore. And I wasn't carnivore at the time, but I was basically carnivore. I was a self-inflicted carnivore. And that's always what I had, just massive amounts of steak. And I would just eat as much steak as I could until I was full. And I was like, that was what I was happy. I was really happy with that. And that's why I always say that now it feels like it's my birthday every single day, because every single day I get this big, massive steak and I eat as much of it as I want to. And it's fantastic. So hopefully you get that as well. If you're doing carnivore, that's even better. You're going to be really killing it, and you're going to grow up bigger, stronger, smarter, faster, and better able to succeed against your peers and as an adult. So that's really exciting. I wish that I had been able to do this from 10 years old. That would have been a gift. And I would have, I did well in sports, but my God, it would have been murder if I was doing this stuff from 10 years old or younger. So good luck with that. And Marie, happy birthday on Saturday. It was actually my girlfriend's Elle's birthday yesterday. So we were celebrating then. And so a lot of birthdays going on. Okay, let me see. Question from Christy. Thank you very much for the super chat. 3 months carnivore, 220 pounds, down 20 pounds. Very good. Congratulations. Having trouble getting more than around 1,000 calories a day, maybe damage to my metabolism. Ideas on upping my calories. Well, it's really just a matter of eating properly. So eating fatty meat. More lean meat you eat, you're going to get tired of that more quickly. So increasing the fat is good. Trying to get 1 to 2 grams of fat per gram of protein. What does that look like? That looks like if you were doing ground beef or mince, that would be 65-35 or 60-40, sort of in that range. That's a very good amount of fat. And so just try to increase the amount of fat and see if that helps. But just eat what your body's telling you to. If you're eating fatty meat until it stops tasting good, and you try that a couple times a day, your body should be able to get in what it wants. And if it's tasting bad at that point, your body's just telling you don't need it. So some people need a bit more, some people need a bit less. And when we're losing weight, when we have excess fat tissue, you don't need to starve yourself. Your body will, on its own, request less food. And so that's what I find is very common, is that some days people are eating, they're not eating all that much, but they're eating as much as their body's asking them for. And if you're doing that, your metabolism will stay high, and your body will just prioritize the fat that you have in excess. Especially now when you're sort of 3 months in, your body's really tuned in to and fat adapted, that sort of term that goes around. That's going to be a pretty good time that your body's just going to know how to use its fat stores and utilize them. So I wouldn't worry about that. Just eat as much as you feel hungry for, and just leave it at that. When I was at excess fat, I wasn't as hungry as I am now. I was eating probably half of what I eat now. And there was one day in particular that I remember doing a big workout, a massive training, and I was like, oh, I've got to eat because I'm going to work out tomorrow. And I'm thinking like, oh, I need to eat now because I'm going to use that energy tomorrow. No, I'm going to use my energy from 3 weeks ago tomorrow, because even when we're very slim, actually probably 6 years ago from tomorrow, because you store energy and then you use it at a later date. And even very slender people have weeks of energy in their fat tissue, even though they don't have much fat tissue in comparison to other people. You have weeks available. So there was one day I was just like, I don't want to eat it all. And I was very, very concerned about that. I thought I was going to feel horrible for it. But it just tasted awful to eat. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I love steak. Why the hell would it taste bad? But I just trusted my body. I listened to it, and I let it go, and I felt great the next day. And then steak tasted fine the next day. So I would just do that. I would just listen to your body, eat as much as you enjoy eating. Don't force yourself. You don't need to do that, but try eating twice a day and see if that helps it, and increase the amount of fat that you're eating, because you'll get tired of leaner meat very quickly, and that is definitely something that will keep you from getting enough food. Okay. Other than that, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Okay. Question from Mark. Thank you very much for the super chat. Question: is an increase in EGFR from 55 to 69 over 6 months good after being on carnivore? Yes, that's fantastic. So EGFR is a measure of your kidney function, your renal function, and clearance rate. That is fantastic. Okay. So right here, everyone take a screenshot of this or just a mental picture of this, and remember this every single time someone says you can't do carnivore because you eat more meat, you eat more protein, it's going to damage your kidneys. And what I've been telling you is actually the studies show that if you eat more protein, it actually improves your kidney function right there. Okay. So that's what I'm talking about. So that's your kidney function improving because you're eating what you're supposed to eat, and your kidneys are going to start working the way they're supposed to work, and they're going to heal what they can heal. And that's it right there. So just keep doing what you're doing. That's excellent. That's fantastic. So just keep doing it. These plants, when you don't eat meat, what do you replace it with? Plants that have toxins in them that are nephrotoxic, that do direct damage to the kidneys, right? Or indirect damage to the kidneys and cause kidney stones like oxalates, or direct damage like oxalates. So, it's not so far-fetched that our kidneys would improve when you remove things that directly damage the kidneys and you provide it with nutrition that is beneficial for the kidneys. So well done there. Everyone, remember this. Okay. When anybody says, oh, you're going to box your kidneys, bullshit. Again, you know, it doesn't matter how brilliant your theory is. It doesn't matter how smart you are. If it doesn't agree with experiment, with real life things happening, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what a theory says. It doesn't matter how smart someone is. And they said, you eat more meat, you eat more protein, you stop eating these wonderful, blessed plants, then your kidneys are going to get worse. No, they're not. So, question from Laura Smith. Thank you very much for the super chat. I'm brand new to carnivore. Anything in particular I should be mindful of as I start out? Well, just eat. It's very easy to undereat on a carnivore diet. So you want to eat as much as you can, and you need to eat enough fat as well. It's going to be a lot more fat than you've ever eaten in your entire life, most likely. And so it's going to feel very strange, but you need the fat. Okay. So get very fatty cuts like a ribeye or Scotch fillet and brisket. Those sorts of things are very fatty. That's what you want. That's the level of fat that you want. That's not going to make you fat. That's not going to make you sick. That's not going to cause heart disease. Those are very important nutrients. That's essential nutrition to the human body and brain, especially the fat in the brain. So eat enough. Keep eating fatty meat until it stops tasting good. That's how you know, because your hunger signals are going to be very different, which is why it's easy to undereat, because you just don't know how much you're supposed to have, because you feel fine all the time. And then it's as important what not to eat as what to eat. So my hard rule for myself is no plants or fungus, no sugar or any sweeteners, nothing artificial. That goes for sauces, seasonings, and drinks as well. So you look on the ingredients and there's more than just meat, don't get it, right? If you want to be as good as you can be, right? And red meat for the best of best results. And then just you need to throw yourself into sort of educational settings for this. So, going on my YouTube channel, watching things like this, that's excellent. Going on my YouTube channel, go to my playlist called Getting Started on a Carnivore Diet, and then working your way through those videos. And some of them are like Carnivore for Beginners, things on fiber, frequently asked questions. About 97% of the issues that people run into or the questions that they have are generally answered in those three videos. And then it's really important to watch the other videos on the why this is a good idea and not just how to do it. Because if you know and understand, the evidence behind this and the arguments and the logical reasoning behind this and seeing how people are succeeding, then you are much more likely to make this a lifestyle and a lifelong change, because that's what this is. This is not a crash diet. This is not something you do just to drop some weight really quickly, but then you have to get away from it because it's not healthy. This is optimal nutrition for human beings. And it's very important that if people want to live optimally, live the most healthy, happy, and longest life, that they eat to their biological design. That's how we're designed, right? And there's an immutable law of biology, which is that of adaptation. What we have been adapting to for millions of years, which is meat, is what we're optimized for. And so eating something that didn't exist 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, or we didn't start eating until 10,000 years ago, we don't have much time to adapt to that. And so we're not as adapted to that as we are to meat. And there's not really much you need to adapt to with meat. There are no actual harmful chemicals in meat. There are harmful chemicals in plants that you have to be adapted to, which we are not. And especially different populations such as Australian Aboriginals or Native Americans or Sub-Saharan Africans and others who did not have access to cultivation and agriculture as long as other populations have. They are less adapted, even less adapted, because they've only been introduced very recently. So they've had a couple hundred years to become adapted to this garbage. Doesn't work. So it's going to be even worse for them. So that's what I would do. Really immerse yourself in understanding why this is a good thing. The first video I ever did, I still think it's one of my favorites. The facts about carnivore and vegan diets. It just goes through the arguments, for and against both both cases. You're saying, well, we should be vegan. Okay, well, here are the arguments that they make. Here are the arguments they make against eating meat. Let's go through them. And so it's 44 minutes, and I think it's as succinct as it can possibly be to cover the most material. And then I have other videos like why we are carnivores, plants are trying to kill you, and so on. And ones with Dr. Peter Ballerstedt, looking at the environmental impacts and actually the benefits that we get from livestock agriculture. And that covers really all the gambits of why the hell we should do this, and the detractions when people say, no, you can't do this. Or my one on cholesterol, the truth about cholesterol and heart disease, just goes through the facts, the history, the science. This was a scapegoat. The people scapegoated cholesterol to try to protect their vested interests in sugar. There's sugar companies paying these people off. They did not tell people they were paying people off. It's a con. It's a fraud. These people were frauds. And whether or not people like Ansel Keys ever did good work in their past, I'm sure they did. That's how they had clout to sell, right? And those Harvard professors, same thing. They're cons. They're frauds, and they're just garbage humans that they would do this at all, and really try to hurt the world, whether knowingly or unknowingly. They cause huge, serious harm and suffering, and people to die decades early and suffer throughout that time. It's actually really sick. And I have no idea what their intentions and motivations or feelings were to that, or if they even understood just how bad they made the world. But they did. They caused huge amounts of human suffering, probably on a grander scale than any other dictator like Stalin and Mao and Hitler and all these sorts of people. I mean, you're talking about hundreds of millions of people, billions of people that have been affected by this terrible fraud that was perpetrated on people. So understanding that, understanding the history, understanding the actual science, the actual evidence is really important. And so that's what I would suggest. Super chat from Kettering. Thank you very much. I have AFib, so atrial fibrillation. Have the Roux-en-Y. Have had the Roux-en-Y procedure. Plan to start carnivore. Should I increase electrolytes via keto chow to compensate for malabsorption? Well, probably not going to have an issue with malabsorption because meat is the most bioavailable food stuff that you have. Most people don't need to take electrolytes for like an actual deficiency. I've not seen anyone actually get a drop in their potassium below 3.5, which is the lower threshold, and which at that point you can start getting some electrical dysfunction of your heart. I saw one gentleman I did a consult with or spoke to him online, and he's like, yeah, mine is 3.2, so under 3.5, and I feel fine. I don't have any issues with my heart. And I was like, okay, that's weird that happened. Check it again now. And if it's still down, then definitely supplement. But you can get aberrant tests. Sometimes the test is wrong. I mean, like potassium, I get potassiums back sometimes and they're like 9.8 and you're like, they'd be dead. Right. I mean, like that can't happen. Right. So you can get weird sort of results that aren't necessarily indicative of what's going on. He retested, it was like 4. So, not an issue. So it's probably just an aberrant test. You can just start and just go ahead and start. Salt to taste. If you are feeling fine, that's fine. If you want to check your electrolytes, it's an easy test to take. It comes back very quickly, and you can check. And if your potassium is low, definitely take some. If your magnesium is low, you can take some. Magnesium will come up, and that's usually not going to cause too much of an issue unless you get very low. But depending on where you're coming from, what your diet was before this, what supplements you took, then you might actually be deficient in magnesium and things like that. Probably not in sodium and potassium because your body very tightly controls that, because things go very, very wrong if they don't. So I wouldn't worry too much about that unless you sort of feel that there's an issue. Certainly, if you start having changes in your heart rhythm and rate and all, and the feeling in your chest, definitely get that checked. And if that's low, then definitely supplement. So you can do that. You can take keto chow if you want. Most people don't need to. but you can check, and in your case, probably a good idea just to be a bit more on top of that, and just work with your doctor and say, hey, I just want to check my electrolytes once a week, couple times a week, whatever. And then you just see. And if you need electrolytes, then take electrolytes. Super sticker from Fran. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And we just have a question from D. Lee. Is smoked meat and smoked salt and spices safe to eat? Thank you. Well, I mean, I'm not too worried about the smoking of it. We've been smoking things, or at least using fire with smoke for a very, very, very long time. And I mean, we've been cooking meat for about 800,000 years at least, if not longer. So it's it's very likely that whatever, again, going back to adaptation, we've been exposed to this for hundreds of thousands, probably over 1 million years. People think it's probably been cooking meat for about 1.5 million years. Dr. Bill Schindler thinks we probably had fire for about 2.5 million years, because when the ice shelf started coming down, people actually started going up into the ice, not running away towards the equator, right? So that's easier to do if you have fire, right? And so that's his thought on that. He thinks that that's probably the case. And so, yeah, so that's the thing. So I think that the smoke is probably not ideal, but it's probably not all that big of a deal as well. And so I wouldn't really worry too much about that. Smoked spices or salt. I mean, yeah, if you want it on the salt, the spices are the problem there in my view. So you're going to get different plant toxins. The reason they have such a strong taste is because they have strong chemicals in there that your brain is warning you against, saying, oh, no, not that one. So we do it in very small amounts and go, oh, that's nice. Try that in a large dose in your body, and you will know exactly how your body and brain feel about you ingesting that, right? Because there are chemicals in there that your body doesn't want, and that's what that strong, alarming flavor is all about. So I love fat kitty cats. Thank you very much for the super chat. What would a diet look like for someone who has AlphaGal syndrome? If you don't know what it is, it's a red meat allergy you get from a tick bite. Yeah, so that's the Lone Star tick that's sort of becoming more prevalent, and which is a bit concerning and a bit interesting, seeing as that the WF people said, hey, why don't we make people allergic to meat to get them to stop eating meat? And there's this Lone Star tick, that does the same thing. So why don't we bioengineer people and release something that makes people feel sick and allergic when they eat red meat? And then wouldn't you know, the numbers of AlphaGal syndrome and these tick bites went from next to nothing to now, I think the last thing I heard was about 450,000 people in the US, something like that. So could just be this tick getting out of control. No evidence to the contrary, but that I know of anyway. But I just don't trust these bloody people and trying to bioengineer and screw this. I mean, that's like Hitler level, mucking around. You're talking about bioengineering and engineering people to be the way you want. This is none of your goddamn business, and is bloody not legal, especially to do things without people's permission. So hopefully that's not what's happening. But regardless of what's happening, if it is the Lone Star tick and this is what's going on, from what I understand, AlphaGal syndrome, which is alpha galactose as a specific carbohydrate that appears up in red meat, and that you just get sensitive to that, and your body attacks that carbohydrate on red meat. It's not in all meats, so you don't have to eat red meat. So you can still do carnivore, eating fish and chicken, and I believe pork and other sorts of things. It's just the red meats are out. But from speaking to people like Dr. Berry and others, from what their understanding of it is, that it only actually lasts a few months. So it's not like a permanent sensitivity. But even if it were a permanent sensitivity, you could eat other meat. And, it's not, necessarily ideal, not being red meat, but you can get pasture raised chicken and pork and wild caught fish. And, and that should be fine, as well. And it's certainly better than eating any of the garbage that these people are spewing out. So, yeah, so that's what I know about AlphaGal syndrome anyway. Dan Park, thank you very much for the super chat. 2 weeks carnivore, nauseous when my beef is too fatty, trying to maintain weight, lost 7 pounds, keep eating when nauseous, or just eat more often. Probably eat more often. Don't make yourself sick. A lot of this is conditioned response. I got the same damn thing when I went carnivore again, and I knew full well this is what we're supposed to eat. This is how we're designed. And the fat is good for us. The cholesterol was never a problem. Saturated fat's not a problem. Saturated fat's actually good for you. Your brain is saturated fat. Your brain is cholesterol. Your body is cholesterol. Your hormones are cholesterol. These are not bad things. These are good things. And I still felt nauseous when I ate fat because I was conditioned since birth to think that fat was bad. And so I associated that wonderful, lovely taste with something horrible for me. And so I felt physically sick. And I remember stopping myself going like, well, what am I doing? Why am I cutting the fat off? I trust the studies. I believe the evidence. The fat is good for me. Eat the damn fat. I still couldn't do it. And so I had to cut off a small sliver of fat and put it with a leaner piece of meat. I chew it together, and it was just like, okay, that tastes good. The fat with the lean actually tastes good. It's like marbling, right? But I just couldn't eat it like a visible chunk of fat, just a little bit with a little bit of meat that actually tasted good. Okay. And so I did that for weeks, months, really a year, until I could actually take a piece of fat and eat it and not feel sick. It's a conditioned response, right? So you need to decondition it, right? So you've been in a cult, and now you're unbrainwashing yourself. All right. So just remember that fat's really good for you. Take it slow, take small pieces of fat with the lean, and eat what you're comfortable for. Don't make yourself sick. You don't want to give yourself another conditioned aversion to eating what you're supposed to eat. So just take it easy, take it slow, a little bit of fat with a big piece of lean meat, and work your way up to a little bit more. And if you sort of get to a point where like, oh, that's enough for today, or for this meal, fine. Eat later on. That's totally fine. So I think you're doing it right. You do need to eat enough. You're going to lose some weight, especially early on. You're going to lose a lot of water weight and some excess fat. That's going to happen. If you're working out, if you're lifting weights and you're eating to the point that your body is saying that's enough, and you eat it till it stops tasting good, then you'll put on muscle very easily, more easily than you've ever put on before. And so, yeah, just keep going with that. France LaRebelle, thank you very much for the super chat. Again, hello, Dr. Chaffee. Carnivore since August 11th. Sometimes my husband feels dizzy. He lost 40 pounds. Fantastic. High blood pressure, a cup of coffee per day. He eats red meat, eggs, bacon. What do you think is causing his dizziness? Could be a lot of things. First thing that pops into my head is blood pressure medications. So if he's on blood pressure medications and his need for them goes down, he's going to get low blood pressure, especially when he stands up. So you can get postural hypotension. So you're sitting down, everything's fine. Then you sort of stand up. Everyone gets this when they stand up too quickly. Sometimes like, oh, a bit lightheaded. This will happen to him if he's getting drops in his blood pressure consistently because he's on too much medication. He'll get that experience consistently because your blood pressure changes when you stand up, or when you're laying down and you sit up, and you go from sit up to stand up. You get a temporary drop in your blood pressure. And your body normally corrects this pretty quickly. But if it doesn't correct this, then you're going to get a bit less blood to your brain that your brain needs. And you sort of go, oh, I feel fuzzy. I feel dizzy. Sit back down, first of all. Sit down before you fall down, as they say. But that would make me suspicious that he's on too much medication. And so what you do is you just come off the medication. And or at least reduce the amount of medication that he's on, working with his doctor. So that's first of all. Second of all is dehydration. You're not getting enough water. Most people aren't getting enough water. Very few people, like because if he's off all his blood pressure medication, okay, then you have to look at other things. Maybe he's dehydrated. Maybe it could be dehydrated and on too much medication. And some people will actually get a bit of low blood pressure because they're dehydrated. And actually, electrolytes may help in this case because that can sort of help your body retain a bit of water, right? And so that can help sort of bolster your blood pressure. But most people can do it with just more water. If he has high blood pressure, he's going to be on medications. If he's on too much medication, he's going to be on his blood pressure is going to be too low. So check the blood pressure a couple times a day, certainly whenever he feels dizzy. And if he's getting that dizziness when he's standing up, almost certainly that's what's going on. Work with his doctor to reduce the amount of blood pressure medication because, hey, that's great. He doesn't need as much medication. That is very normal. People going on carnivores that they don't have as much of a demand for their blood pressure medication. So I would do that. Black coffee, just so you know, most black coffee, especially if it's like a French press, not filtered, not going through a paper filter, they will spike your blood pressure too. So if you're sort of playing these games where you're spiking your blood pressure and dropping your blood pressure and doing all these sorts of things, you're going to have imbalances, right? You take that coffee, raises your blood pressure, that's counterbalanced by the blood pressure medication. Then the coffee sort of wears out of your system. Now the blood pressure medication is too much, and now you feel dizzy and lightheaded. So try to eliminate out as many confounding factors as possible, coffee being one of them. If it's filtered, oh, hey, buddy, I'm going to be a little visitor. If it's filtered, it usually takes out those what's called rancid oils in coffee that cause those blood pressure issues. Question from Jim 5252. Will a line diet help the autoimmune lichen sclerosis? And can it rebalance the gut microbiome without the use of sauerkraut and probiotics? Thank you. It can rebalance your oh God, come here. It can rebalance your microbiome. You look at the Inuit; they have fantastic microbiomes, and that can be us, right? The ferments. I mean, those ferments are. You don't need probiotics, right? Ferments are probiotics. You certainly don't need commercial probiotics. A lot of them have sugar and sweeteners and all that sort of garbage, which actually promote the growth of the wrong gut bacteria as well and ill health. So don't use those. There's actually a study just came out recently showing that they don't help. They actually make things worse, probably because of the sugar and the sweeteners promoting the wrong kind of gut bacteria. But I haven't read the study, but that would be my guess. You can use fermented animal products. You can have a bit of fermented dairy, live culture yogurt. You take that, mix that in with meat. You chew them together and swallow them together. That gets the bacteria sort of past the danger zone in your stomach and first part of your duodenum, and it gets out further down into your colon and so on. They're actually supposed to have bacteria. And so that's what you can do. But no, just eating meat, you're going to be fine. Some people, if they're having gut issues or whatever, they may need to address this and have some fermented dairy or something like that. Some people do use fermented plants as well, and just for the microbiome aspect of it. I think I don't think you need that. If you do need anything, just the fermented dairy, I'm sure would be fine. As to the lichen sclerosis, that's not one that I've treated directly or seen too many people talking about online. But I would expect so because I've yet to see an autoimmune condition that doesn't respond extraordinarily well to a carnivore diet, and that's just because you're not introducing the things into your body that your body's reacting to and attacking with antibodies to begin with, and now you don't have cross reaction with those antibodies in your body, and I would expect it to be the same for that as well. One thing you can do. You go to some of the older Facebook groups for carnivore, usually called zero carb. So zeroing in on health, zero carb health. Those are two great platforms. They're very strict, which is why I like them, because there's no effing around. And people are just like, hey, this is how you do it. This is how people have done it who have succeeded the most, and this is are most likely to succeed. This is the model. And oh, well, you can do this, you can have that. Save it for another group. This is for people that are really want to do it as well as possible. And I like that. And I like the people that started it, like Dana and Charles Washington, on the respective platforms. But anyway, they have a great search function because they've been there forever. And so you search in there, you search for that or your particular condition. It has been discussed. Someone has had it. They have experience with it. Most commonly, it gets better. And so I would expect that with the autoimmune issue. But you can just check. You can just check and see if anyone else has had an experience with that. Bod XO, thank you for the super chat. Are big pharma and medicine intentionally doing this to the population to make them easier to control? Greek and Egyptian texts said, give slaves grain. Yeah. Hard to say, but it is pretty reminiscent of all these things like the Greeks and Egyptians and Romans that they gave their slaves and their gladiators. Is the argument of the game changers. Oh, the gladiators ate a lot of grain. Yeah, because they were slaves and they were fat and they actually ate grains. They were called the grain eaters. In fact, I learned that in my classics studies in college. They were called the grain eaters, and that was because they wanted to get fat. They wanted to get put on extra fat because that was like armor, right? Because if you're very lean and slim, right? 2-inch cut in, 2-inch stab in, 3 inches, you can hit a major organ, major vessel, you're done. You've got 5-6 inches of fat on you. That's protection. You get a 2-inch, 3-inch stab. Yeah, it'll bleed, but you're not hitting any major organs or vessels, right? So it's protection. It's body armor, right? You can make an argument. Maybe you're fat and sick and not moving as fast as you would, and you have a bigger target to hit. Could be, but we do know this with like cats. Like I have a hairless cat. Can't let them outside because they will just get their asses handed to them by other cats who have a big old mat of fur. That's protection to them. They don't have that protection. So you go after a cat, you can just biting fluff, doesn't help you. Whereas if you're seeing the skin, you know exactly where to bite to get a chunk out of someone, right? And you don't have any little defenses. So that was the same with the gladiators. But different imperial powers have subjugated and kept people in check. The serfs class, the peasant class, the plebeians, kept them in check by giving them a bunch of grains and cutting off the meat supply. That's a tactic old as time. Or as old as civilization anyway. And I don't know the intentions of big pharma and big medicine. I do know that most doctors certainly don't prescribe to that, and I would have no idea that that's even something that is in the possibilities. But I do think that they're trying to profit, and their profit model is such that it benefits them for us to be sick perpetually so that they can sell us chronic treatments. Okay. So there was a Goldman Sachs memo that went out or meeting that they talked about. And it just said, is curing disease a viable business model? Should we be curing these or should we be looking at treatments for chronic conditions that will never go away? So we spend $1 billion developing a drug, and this is something that people have to take for 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, and a large population. So looking at it like an isolate, actually curing something that goes away, you can only treat them once. This, you treat them for 40 years, right? And so that's what they're going to dedicate their money and resources to, right? They're not going to try to cure something. They're going to try to treat something, and they're going to look at things that are prevalent throughout the population that have high impact and is something that is a chronic condition. It's not like antibiotics. I mean, there hasn't been a new antibiotics, I think it's 30 years, something like that. More than that. It's, God knows. I mean, they just don't, or a new class of them anyway. I mean, it's been a long time since people have looked into actually treating infectious disease, right? even though we've got superbugs coming up out all over the place. That's not what people are looking at. They're looking at diabetes and heart disease and blood pressure and cholesterol and saying, hey, how can I give this someone a pill? You give them a course of antibiotics that's done in a week or two, right? But this person needs a statin forever, right? And that's what they say. You know, if you listen to some of these people, the age and the threshold for when you start on blood pressure medication or when you start on statins is getting lower and lower and lower and lower. And this is, of course, to sell more products because you can sell it to more people. And, you know, they're saying anyone over 50, just because of your age, you should be on a statin. And now they're saying it over 40. And now people are saying, well, basically, you should just be on a statin for your whole life. You should just never let this stuff build up. That is insane. Your body is cholesterol. Your brain is cholesterol. And some of these things cross into the blood-brain barrier and stop your brain from making cholesterol, which is about 20% of the physical structure of matter in your brain. And the axon myelination is partly cholesterol. It's like, I don't know, 50% cholesterol, something like that. It's high levels of cholesterol. And your brain makes cholesterol. These drugs can stop your brain from making cholesterol. And now you don't have the physical building blocks and structures to build your brain. You give that to a kid whose brain is developing, you are going to prevent proper development. That is sick. That is absolutely, I mean, that's going to Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, where they're intentionally dumbing down certain members of the population in order to have them do these menial jobs that the alphas don't want to do, and make it easier for them to just, you know, have a hedonistic life and not work too hard. That's God knows who's intentionally doing what, but that's going to be the result. You're going to seriously damage and affect the intellect and mental development of kids and adolescents and adults, because you're constantly remodeling your brain. You still need cholesterol as an adult, as a late adult. You need cholesterol. There are case reports of people getting dementia from these different statins that cross a blood-brain barrier, right? That's not okay, right? So I don't know if that's their intention. I do know their intention is to make money. And they have already figured out that you don't want to cure disease. I mean, Chris Rock called this in the 90s. You know, one of his big tours. I used to listen to it with my buddy Jonathan, going to France with. We used to do it all the time. It's hilarious, and we thought it was a joke, but he was bang on. He said they don't want to cure diseases; they want to treat diseases, so you can treat them your whole life. You know, they're still pissed off they cured polio, right? And, you know, everyone laughs, but like, that's exactly what they're saying. They're saying we don't want to treat it. That's not a viable business model. We don't want to cure it. We want to treat it for a prolonged period of time. That's what's happening. So that's their business model. Now, it could be that they're nefarious, and it could be some assholes like the pharmaceutical executive. I believe it was Callie Means, but it could have been someone else who sort of said there was a conversation with a pharmaceutical executive, and they said, and he asked, "Do you know what my favorite drug is that our company produces?" And they go, "Oh, you know, what's that? Something that cures cancer and helps children or something like that?" No, my favorite medication that we make are medications that cause side effects that we have medications that treat. Those are my favorite, because we sell more product, right? And you get down these prescription cascades. You have these bad side effects. You get medications for that side effects. That causes other side effects. You get medications for that side effect, right? And you hear this. You're not supposed to go down that route as a doctor. You're supposed to, I mean, that was taught to us early on in medical schools. Like, don't go down that. You know, don't go down this prescribing cascade. Address the first one. Say, okay, what can we change here to make it so you don't have that problem in the first place? Hey, buddy. And I talked to people, and they're like, hey, I was taking this drug or whatever, and it made me feel very sick. And so I stopped taking it, like a statin. In particular, I was talking to someone the other day about that. And their doctor said, oh, but I could have just given you something for that. I could have given you something for it. I was like, damn it, no. So there are people there, that's their business model. They want to sell you drugs. They want to sell you drugs for as long as possible. And you know, People have always wanted to be in power. They've always wanted to be oligarchs. They've always wanted to be the aristocracy. And what does that mean? That means other people have to be the serfs. They have to be the plebeians. That means you, me, we are the plebeians. We are the masses. We are the serfs. You read Friedrich Hayek's book, The Road to Serfdom. You will see all of this. He calls this, he said, 20 years before you get the totalitarian regime where people are now serfs again, they're now, they're now beholden, slaves bound to the land. You get certain things that happen, and they're predictable. And so, we are seeing this stuff in full force at the moment. So, you never know. I mean, the people at the WEF, they are almost certainly doing this stuff intentionally. They've basically almost said that in a lot of ways. Like, hey, we need to make people allergic to meat so that we can force them to do what we want. I mean, these are Hitlers. These are this generation's Hitler. That's exactly what they are. This is what Hitler did, right? Some of the things that Hitler did, and it started here and it ended in genocide. So, how about let's not? How about let's stop before we get to the genocide part? That would be my vote. Giovanni, thank you for the super chat. If I pee too much at night and I have a very hyper nervous system overall, is carnivore still good for my system? Absolutely. It's good for all humans. Okay. And, it's not really going to affect your peeing necessarily. In fact, if you're peeing because you have prostate enlargement, this can actually help that. A lot of people reverse their prostate enlargement just going on ketogenic diets in general. And carnivore diet is, again, what I think is of as the best ketogenic diet. And the ketogenic diets are good because they're getting you closer to a carnivore diet. So yes, that is perfectly fine for you. It's perfectly fine for all humans in all conditions, because we're all humans, even in different conditions. If you're having, you're peeing a lot at night, just one thing you can do is try to not drink water towards the end of the day. Just drink a lot in the early, preload it, and then try to get most of it out at night or before you get to bed and everything like that. This question from Jorge Gomez. Can you please talk about liver enzymes, ALK? Well, I mean, pretty general, but I mean, talking about just in the context of a carnivore diet, you're going to be removing things in your body that your liver has to spend a lot of time and energy detoxifying, and so that's going to improve. You're going to improve your liver function. This is generally what we see. So, I see people with whatever their liver function is, it tends to improve. And sometimes you get maybe a little blip up, you keep an eye on it, you check it again in a few months, now it's down again. So who knows what happened there, but it doesn't always happen to everybody anyways. So in general, liver function tests get better. If your liver function tests are not getting better, or maybe they're getting worse, that means something else is happening. It's not the carnivore diet. It's not that part of it. It is something else. And so you need to work with your doctor to see what else that is and see if you can fix that, because obviously there are other things that are harmful to us besides our food. And so you can have other problems, you can have other diseases, you can have other issues that don't come from carnivore. So you need to be able to work with your doctor and address those things. So a question from Weeby Sunshine. Thank you for the super chat. If eating grass-fed burger and ribeye and a little bacon, or maybe I'm eating grass-fed burger, ribeye, and a little bacon, is that enough fat daily? Well, it depends on how lean your grass-fed burger is, but it should be fine. If it tastes good to you and you're feeling well, great. Watch my video called "You Don't Need Fiber" and parentheses fiber, constipation, and diet. That will, and also getting started on a carnivore diet. I talk about how to sort of gauge how much fat you're getting. It goes by your stools. If you're not drinking coffee, not using artificial sweeteners or other sort of laxatives, because those are laxatives, tea is as well, then you can look at your stools. Your body has a limited capacity to absorb fat. And so once you've reached that threshold, it actually goes out, it gets excreted. And so that's fine. And so that little bit of excess fat is what keeps your stool soft. And so if you have soft, normal stools, even if it's only once a week, you're not constipated, you're getting enough fat, that's fine. If you're getting dry, hard, constipated stools, that's constipation, not frequency, but the consistency, texture of your stools, that's constipation. Then you are not eating enough fat. So if you're eating that much, you're not drinking coffee, you're not drinking tea, you're not using artificial sweeteners, which are all going to move things too fast, and you're not going to be able to tell, you're not going to be a good test, then and you're constipated, then you need to eat more fat. If it's normal and soft, you're doing just fine. So that's what I would go by. Everyone's going to be a little bit different. So it sounds like a decent amount of fat, depending on the amount of fat in the burger, which is often too lean. But you check with your stools. Oh, I already did that one. Did that one again. Okay, so Font Freud one, I'm gonna guess. The question is, I get out of ketosis when I drink broth made with bones. So frustrating. How is this possible? Depends on what's in the broth. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just don't drink it if you don't want to. So a lot of people don't drink broth. If you want it every now and then as just a bit of a sort of a warm drink, that's fine. But it can sometimes make it so you don't eat as much meat as you want, and you're not getting all those nutrients. Think about it this way: our tasting, the good taste, good flavor comes from our body saying we want that nutrient, with sugar being an outlier because sugar is a drug and we recognize it as safe and something we can eat and not die that day and survive. So that being an outlier, push that to the side. When meat and animal products taste good, milk is always going to taste good because, again, sugar. But again, push that to the side. Those are the nutrients your body's saying, hey, we want these nutrients. Okay. And they taste better the more your body wants those nutrients. And you have negative feedback. So the more you have, the less good they taste, until they don't taste good at all. And you just say, okay, I'm going to stop eating. So you get nutrients from bone broth. You get nutrients from that beef broth, and it tastes good. But when you don't need as much of those nutrients, they don't taste as good. And so what is that going to do when you eat a steak? Well, the nutrients in there that you want are going to taste good. And the nutrients that you already have enough of, not going to taste as good. And so meat's not going to taste as good. The steak's not going to taste as good. Potentially, this is all theory, but that's sort of the way I think about it. But this is a phenomenon that people have noticed, that if they drink bone broth and things like that, that they tend to eat less, and not necessarily being a good thing, that potentially just not getting as much as their body actually wants, and so they're not getting proper nutrition. And I think that could be a potential mechanism for that you're reducing your enjoyment and experience of those nutrients you got from the bone broth, and now they don't taste as good in the steak, and so you don't eat as much steak, but you need those other nutrients from the steak that now you're not getting. So that's how I think about it. I also don't care about ketosis as much per se. If we're in ketosis, that's great. We're supposed to eat meat. That's what I know. We're supposed to eat meat. That's what we're designed for. That's what we've been doing for millions of years. And so if I'm in ketosis, out of ketosis, and a balance of that throughout the day, okay, whatever. I'm eating what I'm supposed to eat. My body's doing what it's supposed to do. I'm giving it, I'm sort of a trust system, buddy trust. I'm doing a trust fall here. This is how my body works. My body's saying, this is how we work. Give me this food. I'm giving it this food, and I'm trusting that my body is doing what it's supposed to do when it has that food. And so far, so good. Feel great. My bloods are great. I'll actually be doing a video on my bloods, looking at my blood results, which are all great. All basically exactly the same as they were 4 years ago. last time I checked. And I don't check my bloods regularly because I feel fine. I don't think you need to check these things all the time unless there's a problem. I probably wouldn't have checked it now anyway, but it's just basically to appease the vultures that say, oh my God, but my bloods are great. They've always been great. They're still great. And it's just really just to shut people up on the internet. But I'll be doing that at some point when I find the time to do that. I'll be going to France, as I said, so probably won't be until after I get back in any case. But again, I no idea if I'm in ketosis or not. I just eat what I'm supposed to eat and I feel great and things are going well. So that's what I go by. Question from Sunflower. Thank you very much for the super chat. Hi, Anthony. My hubby has Parkinson's. So we just started the carnivore diet after listening to a post where you spoke about your father. Do you have any starting recommendations? Well, I think it's really good that you're trying this to address this for your husband's health and your health as well. I think you'll both find fantastic improvements from that. I can't say if it's going to reverse his Parkinson's. I can say that it's going to improve his life in many other ways that will make Parkinson's much easier to deal with, and hopefully it helps with the Parkinson's as well. I do know that my father has been very stable. He has not progressed. Really doesn't look like he has Parkinson's, and he was diagnosed 7 years ago, and really no progression, and he wasn't doing great at the beginning. And a month into carnivore, he was just a different person. I mean, it was just took 10 years off the clock. And then he was still eating pretty lean. And so I impressed upon him like, hey, because he was getting constipated. And so I was like, hey, if you're getting constipated, that means you're not eating enough fat. You need to eat more fat. And that's good for your brain as well. And he's like, great, good for my brain, going to do it. And he started eating a lot more fat and did even better after that. And there are studies showing that people with higher LDL cholesterol have lower rates of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. Your brain needs fat. Your brain needs cholesterol. And so, getting that and giving and my dad was a proponent. It was doing a Pritikin diet since the 70s, so that poor man's brain had been undernourished for 40 years. The hell do you think is going to happen? It's not going to work properly. And then all the other sort of things that we're eating or medications that we're taking that can detract from that as well. So thankfully he's doing 1,000 times better, and hopefully your husband does as well. So getting started, you need to watch those things. Go to that playlist, Getting Started on a Carnivore Diet, on my YouTube channel, and watch the things on Carnivore for Beginners, the ones on fiber, frequently asked questions, and then the different videos on why we are carnivores, plants are trying to kill you, and bioavailability, and all those other ones in that playlist. Work your way through that so you understand the why and why this is so important, so that you can maximize the likelihood that you and your husband will both make this as a lifelong commitment, and that so you will maximize your health and optimize your health and longevity. And I truly hope that you guys do great with it. Just keep it simple, right? Just eat meat, fatty meat, and drink water, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Eat the meat that you like. Eat enough fat so that you're not constipated. And then if you're taking medications, understand that some of those medications may be too much after a few months or even a month, especially like things like diabetes. It really, really reduces your demand for these sorts of medications. And just being aware of that, tracking blood pressure, blood sugar, and working with your doctor to come off medications if you need to. And that's pretty much it. But watch the videos, immerse yourself in those things, get involved in a sort of a support group. Go onto those. You don't have to pay for anything. You can. There things exist. I do a carnivore challenge, and that we try to give as much support and resources to people that we can, but you don't need that. You can just go to the Facebook groups like Zeroing In on Health, Zero Carb Health. There are people there that have been in your situation and are happy to help you and give you advice. And you look at the search function, you will see conversations of people just like you and your husband who have asked the same questions that you and your husband have, and you'll get answers. And you can go there and say, hey, I'm just starting out having these sort of problems, and you search in the chat, you see if someone's answered that problem. If they haven't, you ask the group. There's thousands of people, tens of thousands of people that have been through this, not necessarily with Parkinson's, but they've been through this, and they'll have very good advice for you. So that's what I would do, and good luck with it. Coach Constance, Love-Minded Living, thank you very much for the super chat. Where does pork and bacon fall in the meat world? I remember a commercial calling it the other white meat. Is it a no-go for beef and salt? Also, a big shout out for your 30-day challenge. Miracles are happening. Hey, that's fantastic. Good to hear. Pork and bacon are okay. I mean, all meat's fine for most people, because we are factory farming and feeding these animals nonsense that they're not supposed to eat. They are not going to process and detoxify these things as well as they would the food that they are designed to eat, and so that can get through into the meat and in particular the fat. So like pork and chicken, when they're fed a bunch of soy and corn, they have a high level of linoleic acid, which is omega-6s that you don't really want. You really want to avoid that, and so that is something that you should be aware of. Most people are fine though. Most people do well on that. It's the people that have more sensitivities, like autoimmune issues. They really need to be more careful, and so they might react to something. So if you have an autoimmune issue, or you're maybe not feeling your best, default is red meat. And especially if you have any sort of autoimmune issue, you should really avoid anything besides red meat and water, really, for the first 6 months to a year, just to make sure. And then you can sort of try in one thing at a time, and see how you go. But it's fine if you tolerate it. If you don't tolerate it, or you have an autoimmune issue, then I would tend to avoid it. Connie Martin, thank you for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Chaffee, my new hero. That's nice of you. I used to hate steak, but now I can't seem to get enough of it. Again, it's conditioned responses. We condition ourselves to hate this wonderful, glorious, marvelous taste, and because we're told it's so bad for us. So I'm glad that that's over now. Is that normal? Yes, it is. Also, how long before you start losing weight? I'm quite overweight. So again, it is normal to sort of be averse to this sort of flavor, because we've been telling ourselves we should be averse to it, that it's bad for us. So we associate that flavor, even though it's marvelous, with something bad for us. And so we get a psychosomatic reaction of feeling gross and sick, and I don't like it. Yes, you do. It's just a conditioned response. You say, I like broccoli, I like coffee. No, you don't. That's Stockholm syndrome. You're being abused your whole life, and now you fall in love with your abuser. So you can recondition yourself. You can de-brainwash yourself, deprogram yourself, and so that's normal. So go to town on that. Eat as much fatty meat as tastes good to you, and then stop once it's done. Weight loss can be triggered by eating enough as well. So if you're chronically eating less than your body wants and demands, you will reduce your metabolism. You will drop your metabolism. You'll slow your metabolism. You won't lose weight. Bariatric surgeons say that if their patients, after they get this surgery, it's very hard to eat, but you have to get at least 1,200 calories a day, or you will not lose weight. 1,400 calories, you lose weight. 800 calories, you don't lose weight. Why is that? Right? Because your metabolism's dropping, right? So eat as much as your body is asking you for. You don't have to overeat. You don't have to force feed yourself. Definitely don't force feed yourself. If meat doesn't taste good, you're not hungry, don't eat. There's food on the plate, put it in the fridge. You don't need it right then. But you want to eat until you get to that point. Until you get to the point where you just say, don't really want to eat that. There are also people that, for a number of different reasons, hormonal in nature, but because they've boxed their metabolism and their hormones for so many years, eating the wrong things, starving themselves, doing different sorts of dieting that is really detrimental to our health and our hormonal health, it can take time. It can take time before this settles down and your hormones come down, especially leptin. That's something you can check. If people have stubborn weight loss, you can check your leptin, leptin, so your serum leptin, and you can see if that's elevated, you might have you're going to have a slower time of losing weight because you have leptin resistance, and that goes away. Most bariatric surgeons that I've spoken to say that if your leptin's over 100, you cannot lose weight on your own. You will never be able to lose weight with diet and lifestyle. You have to get surgery because it's just out of your control. That's not true. If you do it right, if you do a carnivore diet, that leptin comes down. And I even seen people with a leptin over 100 that do lose weight even before their leptin comes down. There are some people that are very stubborn in their weight loss, especially when they have this very elevated leptin. And there's something else going on too, because there are people that have very elevated leptins that actually just drop weight off like crazy. So there's other things going on too. Could be your thyroid, could be your other sex hormones, could be vitamin D, could be your zinc, could be a lot of things that are out of balance that you need to get in balance, generally through optimal nutrition. Sometimes a supplement might help, like vitamin D. If you're just not getting sun, and the fatty meat that you're eating isn't grass fed and finished, not going to have as much vitamin D. So if you have low vitamin D, you might benefit from a supplement. If you're very low, it's a hormone. You don't need hyper elevated sort of ones from supplementation. You do want it from natural sort of sources. It does seem to make a difference. Different sorts of supplementation studies that I've heard Dr. Paul Mason talk about aren't very impressive. If you're supplementing to get up to a level that someone else is at just physiologically, they don't have the same health benefits as each other. The supplemented ones is sort of, you get above a threshold, you need this, you need it. So if you're very low, definitely supplement. But if you're sort of high normal, probably okay. But if you're low, definitely think about that. Most people on a carnivore diet eventually will have very good levels of vitamin D and get in the sun. Sun's good for you. Anyway, so a lot of different things, a lot of different hormonal imbalances that can be at play. Your metabolism can just be suppressed for years and decades of crash dieting and eating horrible things. So give it time. Focus on your health. Focus on how you feel and your energy levels and your sleep and all these other things, and optimize those things too. You need good sleep. You need to optimize your circadian rhythm. Go to bed on time, get proper sleep, use melatonin if you need to. Don't use other sleeping drugs that are not great for you, not going to give you good restful sleep. And if you're still having a problem, check your leptin. If that's elevated, just understand, hey, this is going to take a bit of time. And that's okay. Kelly Hogan talks about how she actually gained weight for 6 months on a carnivore diet, but her health issues were improving so much. She was just like, okay, I feel great. My boils are gone and all these other problems are gone. And so I'm just going to stick with it. And after 6 months, she started just dropping weight like crazy. And so could very well be that she had high leptin. She probably did, just knowing her history and how she, dieted and ate before that. So just give it time. Just be patient. If you're curious, you can check your leptin and just see like, oh, okay, look, it's 78. This is just going to take a bit of time. If it's 4, then it's like, okay, it's something else. Maybe I'm just not eating enough, and maybe that's suppressing my metabolism. So do all that stuff. And then, and if you're doing everything right and it's still being stubborn, just be patient. It'll happen. Focus on your health first and foremost. Also, if you put on muscle, you put on bone density, and you don't lose any weight or gain any weight, it's because you've lost a corresponding amount of fat, right? So you've offset it. And I didn't lose weight for, I don't know, 5-6 months. I was dramatically different in the mirror. I was feeling better. I was looking better. I was performing better. I was getting much more muscular, and I was visibly less fat, right? I weighed the exact same amount. I didn't lose any weight. So weight is problematic as well, because it doesn't tell you about body composition. And so look in the mirror, take a monthly progress picture. You want to see how you're doing, right? And if you're looking leaner, your face is thinner, you're doing great. Do try to exercise if you can. It's not necessary if you can't, but do what you can. Walking is fine if that's what you can do. If you get up to the point where you can do sprints, just as hard as you can go, if it's not safe to do that, don't. And resistance exercises. So even body weight exercises to failure. You can do a wall sit. Dr. Ben, who does the 15-minute workout. We have the book, but I don't recall the name. But anyway, he was saying that he works with people at any stages, and he's like, okay, you can't do squats and power lift and things like that to failure. You can do a wall sit. Just sit against the wall until your legs give out. That was strenuous exercise for you, and so you just do that, and you challenge yourself like that, and you do that sort of exercise, not cardio, but like high intensity sprinting or weights to failure. You are going to trigger more visceral fat reduction and deep cutaneous fat reduction, which are metabolically active, and that can actually slow and impede your metabolism and your health in a lot of ways. So do all of those things, and then just be patient. It'll come. Also, everyone, just so you know, I can't do like an extended director's cut version of Fellowship of the Ring version today. I have an appointment that I have to get to by 12. So I'm going to have to wrap up probably around 11:15. So we've got solid, 45 minutes left. But just so you know, that's when I have to sort of cut it off. And so if we get sort of close to end, I'm going to sort of rapid fire through the super chats. I'll probably just focus on the super chats now, because I don't want to leave anyone hanging. Kimberly Klinger, thank you for the super chat. Question: I have a common variable immune deficiency. I started carnivore a week ago. Any advice in regard to diet and CVID? I give myself weekly SQIG infusions. Keep doing that. Don't change any of your treatment protocol. Work with your doctor. This is just optimizing your nutrition. Your genetics are another issue. Will this help with that? I really hope so. I haven't actually spoken to anybody who's had this. I certainly don't know of any studies that have looked at that, or even a ketogenic diet, but it's going to help you in a lot of ways. You're going to optimize your body and your health in a number of ways. And a lot of those ways are immune related. So it's very difficult to predict what it's going to do for that side of things. But everything else is going to work. You're going to feel better, have less brain fog, have more energy. You're going to optimize your body composition, and you're going to feel better than you ever have in your entire life. If you have other sorts of issues, blood pressure, blood sugar, autoimmunities, those are going to improve. And so your life is going to improve in a lot of ways. And keep doing what you're doing with your doctor with that issue, and track it. If that starts to improve too, bonus. So, and please let me know if that does, because I would love to hear more about that and how you do with that. Low carb, low drama. Thank you very much for the very generous super chat. My friend 53 started moderate low carb last year until 7 weeks ago. Down 22 pounds, triglycerides 140, ALT 56. GGT 67, was it FI 33, HbA1c 3 or 5.3. Then he started keto. Now fasting, triglycerides are 416, ALT and GGT, everything's sort of gone up. HbA1c is about the same. Your thoughts? Thanks for all you do. Well, Christmas, like. Normally you wouldn't see that, triglycerides go down if you don't eat carbs, sugar, alcohol. Probably seed oils are involved in that as well, but definitely the carbs and the sugar. So I would wonder what difference what did he change? Was he eating exactly the same, and then all of a sudden he just dropped the rest of the carbs, but everything else is identical? Or is he doing something else? Is he doing sort of dirty keto? Is he having artificial sweeteners and old keto treats and snacks and things like that? If he is, get rid of all of those. Go carnivore. as well. And also, did he check his bloods directly before he made the switch? And now 7 weeks later, a test is only as good as a retest. Sometimes you get these aberrant levels that are just a bit crazy. And so if he tested those levels months and months and months ago, or even before he started all this, and then there's some sort of change, I mean, you don't know what happened in the middle. So you need a series of tests, and you need them at specific time. So because you can only tell that there's a difference between these 2 points in time. It's just a snapshot in time. So you don't know all the ups and downs and changes and differences that happen in between that. So the more data points you get, the better able you'll be at sort of filling in the gaps. I would test again. I would also get rid of everything that is not that did not exist in nature 1,000 years ago, or 10,000 years ago, or 50,000 years ago, really, or maybe 500,000 years ago, when our pre-Homo sapien ancestors were turning into Homo sapiens. So that just means meat. So, and then I would retest. I would wait 6 weeks. I wouldn't worry too much about this, and I would retest. The triglycerides should come down, if he's not eating any of these things, or she is eating any of these things. No, he is eating any of these things. The liver as well. That is, it could be the things he's eating on keto are necessarily needing to be detoxified by his liver, and is causing stress and strain, because that's who's detoxifying this stuff, is your liver, right? And so it's if you're stressing it with, so a lot of people do keto and they think it's funny, right? So you're eating what you're eating, and then you just say, okay, I'm just not going to eat carbs, and because I'm not going to eat carbs, I'm going to eat more meat and fat, and that's where I'm going to get my calories from. Now I have to eat a lot more vegetables to replace the nutrients that I'm not getting because I'm not eating carbs. What nutrients are in carbs that we need? What vitamin is in carbs? Right? So why would you need to increase the amount of vegetables you're eating to get more nutrients? Because you're losing nutrients from bread. There are no nutrients in bread, so especially white bread. So that's always very funny to me that people would do that or think that they needed to do that. But because they do think that, they eat a ton of vegetables. First of all your nutrients come from meat. So that's what you want. But if you're eating a whole bunch of vegetables, you're going to get a lot of these defense chemicals that are not normal to you and that you're not used to, and they're going to cause harm, right? And so if you're eating a hell of a lot more of this stuff, you can actually damage your liver, you can damage your kidneys, you can damage other processes in your body. And so I would get away from keto. I would go to carnivore, which is also keto. And but it gets rid of these plant toxins. And if they're eating tons and tons and tons of these things, that can be a problem. I would go carnivore. I would go high-fat carnivore. I would cut out everything that didn't exist 50,000 years ago during the last ice age. Meat, right? So he doesn't have to go track down a mammoth, but fatty meat anyway, and get rid of everything else. And I would check it again in a few months. Cholesterol is a bit of a weird one because, and that's another thing. Depending on the time of day you test this, is going to be different. Depending on your activity level the day of or the day before, or if you had sex that morning and sex the day before, you worked out, you're going to have different cholesterol levels. You're going to have different hormonal levels. If you're not fasted, you're going to get these deranged. Now he says the fasting triglycerides is 460, but 416. But how long was he fasted for? That makes a difference as well. So this goes for everyone. I've said this before, but it's good if people haven't heard this before. Take note. This is how you should take your blood tests for the rest of your life. First thing in the morning between 8 and 9 a.m. Fasted from the night before 9 p.m. Only clear water after that. Same hydration status. At least 2 glasses of water in the morning, 2 8-ounce glasses of water in the morning, an hour or two before you get your blood test done. No more than 4 glasses of 8-ounce water before. Okay. You be very sedate, very calm, relaxed, and sedentary the day before. Really, a couple days leading up, chill out. Don't get road rage on your way to the clinic. Don't someone cut you. God damn it. That will change things. That will screw up your tests. Okay, and certainly your hormones and your good with your cholesterol as well. And no exercise or sexual activity the morning of or the day before. Okay, and then don't take any pills or medications or supplements the morning of. Take them after your blood test. Okay, that makes a difference. It makes a big difference. So get these things consistently, and always remember a test is only as good as a retest. And so if you get some weird aberrant tests, check it again, because that's not necessarily accurate. Labs make mistakes, or something in your blood draw was a bit weird. And so that's what I would do. Go carnivore, high fat, eat until you're satiated, and meat doesn't taste good anymore. Test it. Don't take anything else, and then check it again in 6 months' time in that way. And good luck to them. I do expect that that's just an aberrant test, and that will go down for whatever reason. It's up. It will go down. Doing what I recommended. Durkahu, all right. Thank you for the super chat. Does it matter if I start your carnivore challenge mid-month, or should I pay for and start at the beginning of the month for the full experience? Yeah, it's much better to do it at the beginning of the month. In fact, we don't let people come in mid-month unless there's like an extreme sort of reason why they can only do that. But it's really best if you start in the beginning, because everyone else is on the same page. You get given a whole bunch of material, and you get given daily emails that come out in a certain pattern, so that you can sort of have something to learn and learn with everyone. And so, the initial questions that people are talking about and answering get done in the beginning, and everyone sort of sees the answers and gets their and gets on the same page. And so you have someone come in the middle of the month, and they're asking day 1 questions, at day 16. It's sort of disruptive, and it's also not as beneficial to you, because people, the class has sort of moved on, right? So it's best to do that at the beginning of the month. So what we've sort of done now is that you can sign up now for next month, but it's you start then. So we generally do the cutoff about a week into it. So we're still actually okay. So you could sign up for our How to Carnivore 30-day challenge. Just go to howtocarnivore.com and sign up for that. When we have our first Zoom live stream, so every week we have a Zoom Q&A and check in and ask people how they're doing, and people tell us how they're going, and if they have any questions or anything like that, we address them, and as best we can. And then and then we're on different chat sort of things. We use School, SKOOL, and there's a lot of different resources that we have on that, and people can ask questions and discuss with each other on different threads and help each other. And I'm there, and Simon Lewis is there as well to help moderate and answer questions. So we haven't done, so we usually cut it off after the first Zoom, which is on Sunday. And so that is still open. So we still have a couple of days to sign up for that if people want to. And then after that, it's best to sort of wait until next month. But you're still in. If you want to come in, go to howtocarnivore.com and sign up for the 30-day challenge. And just try to do that before Sunday, so that you can come and be part of that first Zoom meeting. And those Zoom meetings are recorded, and you can watch them later. But it is good to be there at the beginning with everyone, and you get your money's worth that way. It's just, it's not great just being in the middle. And then we still give you 30 days, but it's like from the 16th to the 16th, and you're late on one group, and then you're just seeing the beginning of another group. It's not as good. And so it's better for you if you get in at the beginning, which you can still do, but we cut it off sort of after the first Sunday after the challenge. Justin H., thank you for the super chat. Hey, doctor, been carnivore for over half a year. That's great. Benefiting a lot, except I have very bad keto insomnia the night before big competitions. Any advice? Well, I'm glad you're doing better. So keto insomnia but only before big competitions. I mean, that sounds like you're getting nerves, and that's normal. I mean, I would, if I have something like big the next day, it's sometimes very hard for me to sleep. If I have like a big game and I'm just amped up, like going to sleep. And that's not necessarily just from keto. That's just from just being amped up and ready to go. And so, you try to optimize these things using the blue blocking glasses, turn off the lights, be calm and relax. It's hard to do before the night of a game because like I'm already just getting in kill mode the night before, so it's difficult, but optimize things, get the lights off, certainly get lights off, get away from screens, get away from phones right at dusk and at least an hour before you go to bed or want to be asleep. You can also try melatonin, low dose melatonin. If you're in America, it's just over the counter. And so you can get that like 5 milligrams, 3 to 5 milligrams, a good start. You work your way up to like 10 milligrams a night, again, an hour before you go to sleep. Melatonin only works if the lights are off though. If you have the lights on, just wipes it right out of your brain. So just recognize that. And then, do try to sleep. If you're not getting it on other nights, then this is nerves. It's not necessarily from being keto. You can also try to eat, your bigger meal before bed because that generally makes people very lethargic and tired, and you just naturally go to sleep. So you can try all those things. Worst case scenario, none of that works. Have a glass of milk, whole milk. You'll have a bit of carbs. It'll raise your insulin. It'll drop your blood sugar, and you'll feel tired and drowsy. And if it's the carbs, some people say they have to have carbs to go to sleep. Sally Norton's one of those people. She said she's basically carnivore. She basically only eats meat, but she cannot sleep unless she has a bit of carbs. If you're going to eat those carbs, eat animal carbs. Just have some milk. Have a glass of milk. I mean, I don't drink milk because of the carbs. And when I do have milk, because it's delicious, I get tired afterwards. I like all of a sudden just pass out on the couch in the middle of the day. Why the hell is that? Well, because I've just blocked my body's ability to make ketones and I've dropped my blood sugar. Right? So you can sort of use that to your advantage, and your insulin will be, if with just one glass of milk, your insulin should be low enough the next day that you're back in ketosis. But if you're checking your ketones and things like that, check and make sure before you go into a competition, to make sure that you're in the right metabolic state that you can perform your best in the timing that you have. But I would address it from more of a psychological point of view as well. It sounds more like nerves, and so you just address it that way, and hopefully that does the trick. Amazing Shelley, thank you for the super chat. Hi, Dr. Chaffee. My son has autism and ID. I'll have to think about what that means. Diet is high carb, which is all he will eat. Now he has non-alcoholic fatty liver disease at age 20. Would acetylcarnitine be helpful for him? Well, I mean, carnitine is good for everybody. And 30% of people don't make enough carnitine. It is an essential protein to those people. And so if he's one of those people, which that is a thing that can precipitate autism, is a lack of carnitine. So I don't know if that's your son's particular issue. Carbs are not a good thing either, but carnitine can be, a lack of carnitine can be an issue as well. So definitely getting carnitine is a good idea. Getting it from red meat's even better. If you need to supplement, if he's not eating a lot of meat, then do what you need to do. That's fair enough. I would really, really, really try to get him off the carbohydrates. It's the carbohydrates and the sugar that are causing the non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It's not the lack of carnitine. It's the carbs and the sugar. How do we make foie gras? Speaking, going to France and not eating the foie gras. How do you make foie gras? You stuff a feeding tube down the throat of a goose and you just dump in a bunch of grains and carbs, potentially sugar, I don't know, but carbs anyway. And that just builds up a whole bunch of fat in their liver. And that's how you make foie gras. And That's how people get foie gras. Like, why are we thinking that's a different mechanism? You force feed a goose a ton of grains, which they know well enough not to eat all that crap, and they get fatty liver. They get fatty liver disease. And then we think you just eat pizza and carbs and pasta and sugar and cake and all that sort of stuff, that you're not going to get it. Why would you be any different? So that's what I would suggest. Really try to get him off the carb. I know that it can be very difficult, but try to find meats that he will eat. Bacon, other sorts of things that maybe he'll eat. Try to sort of reduce the amount of carbs and try to replace it with meat. There are multiple studies showing benefit of ketogenic diets with autism, even as adults, and certainly as kids. And so if people watch my interview with Professor Chris Palmer from Harvard, he talked about how you can reverse many mental health issues, including autism, but also schizophrenia, major depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar, ADHD, but also autism. Autism, when your brain is fully developed, there's always remodeling. So there's always something you can do, and you can always maximize its function after it's fully developed. But when it's still developing, and he is still developing his brain at 20, that's still going on, then you can actually undo a lot of the misdevelopment that you get with autism. So this can be a metabolic mitochondrial issue. The lack of carnitine, according to Dr. Palmer, seems to be important for mitochondrial function as well in the brain. And so this might be the mechanism by which lack of carnitine is damaging in autism, because you need normal mitochondria and metabolic function for your brain to work normally and to develop normally. You need carnitine for normal neuronal development. And from what Dr. Palmer was saying, that this is because it damages the mitochondria. You need them for the mitochondria, and you don't develop properly without proper mitochondria. Going on a ketogenic diet, carnivore diet, within a few months, you will have 4 times the number of mitochondria, and they are going to be 4 times as effective. So that's a big, big, big addition to your metabolic health and your brain function. And you're going to remove and eliminate out a lot of things that are going to damage and depress the function of your brain. So good luck with that. You can watch. There's a number of other people that I've had on the podcast that have had autism, or their children had autism, and they all found massive benefits from going on a carnivore diet, a ketogenic carnivore diet. So good luck with that. We've 8060. Thank you very much for the super chat. It's very generous of you. Can you discuss the dawn effect? I learned about it from Dr. Siwis first, and find it liberating to no longer suffer and fear the ups and downs of carb-rich mornings, and can comfortably skip breakfast, okay, with some coffee. The dawn effect refers to the morning spike in cortisol, which is very normal. That's just what wakes you up in the morning, and that can cause a bit of insulin resistance and cause your blood sugar to go up a bit. And then you have, you just gets you up in the morning, gets you up and going. All that, going back to the melatonin thing, you can actually suppress your morning cortisol if you take too much melatonin. And so if you find yourself sort of groggy and sleepy, then, cut back on the amount of melatonin that you're taking as a supplement, because that's probably suppressing cortisol. If you have massive amounts of cortisol, then, that's not necessarily a bad thing that you've taken a bit of melatonin. But in any case, some people find that they get a raise in their blood sugar, and they get freaked out by that, but that's normal. It's normal for that to go up a bit. Again, this just goes back to what you are physiologically adapted and designed for. We're designed to eat meat, and you eat a lot of fatty meat, your body's going to do what it's going to do. So we can measure these things and we say, hey, look, this is what happens here, and this is what happens here, and this is what happens here. To me, that's academic. It's interesting, but I'm happy to just trust that that's normal. That if that is normal, right? So if these things are happening, and then they're supposed to happen, right? So I'm happy for that to happen, and I wouldn't, Yeah, it's very nice that you don't have all these ups and downs and swings and crashes with insulin and blood sugar that you normally do on carbohydrate rich diet. So generally, your blood sugar and insulin are there. Maybe bits of fluctuations, like with the dawn effect and other sorts of things, but generally, it's just right there, and that's perfect. So yeah, you don't have to worry about that if you're diabetic, type 1 or type 2. This is going to reduce the demand that you have for insulin and other sort of medications, which is fantastic. You get more of your life back, and you're not beholden on these drug companies that do they have our best interests at heart? I don't know. Some of the researchers and scientists probably got into it for the right reasons. People running the show, they are running on their business model. They want to make money. And as far as I understand, they are heavily invested in the processed food companies, and the processed food companies are heavily invested in the pharmaceutical companies. Why would you think that is? Because they profit from each other. They know that this food is making us sick. Callie Means was a whistleblower, and he was in the board meetings. He says, I know that they know this is making us sick because I've been in the board meetings with them talking about it, right? So he's blowing the whistle on this. And I'm glad he did. But this is, you can see what they're investing in, and you can see exactly what their motivations are as well. They know this is making us sick. They know this is harming us. They know it's addictive. They know this is doing bad things to us, and they know that they can then turn around and sell us the drugs to put a Band-Aid on it and make it not hurt as much. Well, it goes away completely if you just don't eat that crap, and then they don't have any power over you. That's the beauty of a free market, is it's free. You don't have to do it. You don't have to buy this crap if you don't want to. And so if you understand that this stuff is poison, which it is, and that you'll need medications, which you will, if you just say, I'm not going to eat that stuff anymore, I'm going to eat a biologically appropriate diet that we've been eating for millions of years because I'm not an idiot and I understand biology, then you can do that and you won't need all these medications, or at least a lot less of them, or the ones that are actually there for an acute issue, right? Accidents happen. People have genetic issues. People have problems that there are medications to help, which is amazing that we have that. And I'm not fully disillusioned by the medical establishment. There are things that we can do that really help people. The vast majority of it's focused in the wrong direction on these chronic issues that are chronic poisoning from eating the wrong thing. And so, but it's a free market so far-ish. We're not being forced to eat things. They're trying. They want to force you to eat fake meat, force you to not be able to eat meat, give you AlphaGal Syndrome and things like that, force you to eat bugs, force you to do all the other things. They are trying that. So far, the systems and structures in place are keeping the tyrants at bay, which is the entire point of the American Constitution. It was to keep assholes like that the hell away from you and I. And so thankfully it's still, it's sort of on its last legs. It's very threadbare and stretched and torn and tattered because of all the assaults that have been on it over the past century or more since Woodrow Wilson, and certainly FDR and Johnson and things like that. I mean, a lot of stuff. Lyndon Johnson, LBJ. But either way, it's still there. And so right now it's still up to you. You get to choose if you're going to eat this crap or not. And so I've certainly made my choice. I'm never eating that stuff again. And I'm doing much better for it. Nur Jimenez, thank you so much for the super chat. It's very, very generous of you for the $50 super chat. Hi, Doc. Is it normal that my fasting glucose spikes on carnivore? I have type 2 diabetes, and my A1C was 7, but my blood work on, so in August 3rd, A1C was 7, but blood work on October 3rd, I'm going to say, very recently. Okay, and fasting insulin is 4.1. I'm not seeing the second A1C though. In any case, fasting insulin is 4.1. Shall I stop dairy with heavy cream and butter for weight stall. Thank you for what you do best. So glucose can go up and down for a number of reasons. Like we just said here, the dawn effect will certainly affect it in the morning. So just keep that in mind. If you eat a big meal with a lot of protein, that can also raise your insulin. It's not going to be like a huge spike like you ate a whole bunch of carbohydrates. However, if you are diabetic, you might still have a bit more of a reaction to that than others. Down to 6. That's Jesus Christ. Why can't I read? So HbA1c from August was 7, and then went down, and 2 months later went down to 6. That's great. That's fantastic. So that's 2 months. Normally, this is a 3-month average, if not maybe a little different than that, depending on the health of your red blood cells. And so going down to 6 in 2 months, that's fantastic, right? 5 years ago, you show that to your doctor and be like, how the hell did this happen? What'd you do? That doesn't happen. That only gets worse. What the hell did you do? Proof of concept, that you're eating the wrong thing, you get sick, wrong things happen. You start eating the right thing, good things happen. So that's a good thing that happened. So well done. And that's only 2 months, in another month, another 2 months, that's going to come down further than that. So that's great. And your fasting insulin is 4.1. That's right there where you want it to be. So that's perfect. So that's great. You're doing really, really well. I wouldn't worry too much about the spikes. If you are only eating meat, I would stop the dairy. Butter, normally people don't have a problem with butter. People do stall on their weight from using cream and other dairy. And so I would people tend to eat the exact same amount of dairy regardless of how much meat they eat. They'll have the same amount of cheese, the same amount of cream, and they'll still eat the same amount of meat. And so that seems to be a bit of an issue for people. And so, Dr. Paul Mason, has mentioned that there's actually mild, very mild, very small amount, but it's there, it's present, of opiates in milk, right? So this is to encourage the baby mammal to drink more milk. This is important for you, right? So it gives a bit of an addiction, just like the carb addiction. You just I need to go eat. And that gets them stimulated to eat more because it's very important during that initial growth period. So now we're doing that and we just go, I want more of this. And we end up having more than we necessarily need. And this can cause a problem. Also, there's inflammatory properties to the casein, the proteins in milk. And, so that can cause a bit of an issue too. But for whatever reason, people that still use dairy, that's very common for them to stall in weight loss or even gain weight after they've lost weight. So I would cut that out. I would just focus on just whole meat and water. Fatty meat, you want the fat. It's very good for you. Butter is usually okay. I would start with the dairy and the heavy cream and cut that out and just eat fatty meat. You could try using some butter. If you're still not seeing the results you want to see, cut out the butter and just stick to meat. And also remember that it's not necessarily about your weight on the scale. It's about your body composition. You could be losing fat and gaining muscle and gaining bone density, and the scale stays flat. Focus on how you feel. Focus on your health. Focus on your A1C. That's excellent. And then secondarily, look at your body composition. Almost never should you care about the weight on the scale. So focus on those things first. And again, just be patient. Cut out dairy. Cut out things besides meat and water. Cut out all the variables. Certainly any artificial sweeteners. God, those things are awful. And just go to meat and water. Okay. All right. Let me see here. I'm going to see how many questions. Oh my God. Okay. So there are a lot of questions. So please don't put any more super chats in, guys, because I'm going to have a hard time covering all these in the next sort of 10, 15 minutes, but I am going to do my best. I'm going to prioritize some of the larger ticket items and to make sure that you get your questions answered, and then I'll answer as many of the down the chain there as I can. We'll start with this one. So Abdi Karani, thank you very much for the super chat. I've been eating carnivore for the past few weeks with fasting to lose weight. I've been getting a lot of heartburn when I'm fasting. What do you do for that? Is it okay to eat Tums to alleviate it? Yeah, I guess it is. You don't want to. You don't want anything with sweeteners in it or flavorings, and a lot of them have that. So make sure you don't have any of those. But quite often, well, if you're fasting, you don't necessarily need your pH is low, but you do want your pH pretty low. If your pH goes above 4, you actually start growing bacteria in your stomach, which is it's not supposed to be there. So just be mindful of that. Don't get addicted to those things. Don't eat a whole ton of those things. The more you eat carnivore and stay away from carbohydrates, actually reflux actually improves, and so it should settle down. If you need an occasional antacid or something like that, and it doesn't have any flavorings or sweeteners in it, fine. Use it as little as possible, and don't use it around mealtime because you need that pH nice and low because you want to break this food down, and you don't want to raise it up enough that you're going to start growing bacteria. That's the last thing you want. You'll just open yourself up to a lot of problems. So Jared H, thank you so much for the generous super chat. 34-year-old male, or I'm assuming male, 34 years old, 316 pounds down to 294 pounds. That's fantastic. Arthritis is gone. Even better. Brain fog gone. Mood completely improved. That's fantastic. Performance improved. Everything is improved. Thank you for everything. Please keep doing what you're doing. Sleep apnea gone. Snoring gone. I'm happy and well fed. Well, that's amazing. I am so glad to hear that. And that's just other people that are in Jared's position, a few weeks ago, a few months ago, look at this as encouragement. This is fantastic. And this is what we tend to see. Brain fog goes away, arthritis pain goes away, mood improves dramatically, and weight gets better, and metabolism and snoring and sleep apnea. That's from like swelling and infiltration of fat and inflammation in your soft palate. And that sometimes goes within a week or two, which is amazing. Like even before the weight goes, the sleep apnea goes. So that's amazing. Well, thank you for sharing that, Jared. Thank you very much for the super chat, and I really appreciate that. And I wish you all the best. Ron, thank you so much for the super chat. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing a question with that. I'm going to quickly try and scroll through sort of the live chat version, and see if I can find something in the chat. 1 second. Goodness, there's a lot of comments, so unfortunately this is difficult to do. A lot of questions. Goodness. All right, sorry. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's see if Ron put anything up here. Ron B. Oh, it could just be that they just put something as a very kind super chat, and I really appreciate that if that is the case. But I'm going to try and see if there's any question further down, though I'm not seeing one. Okay, not really seeing anything. Well, I'm sorry, Ron, if you did ask a question, I apologize. I'm not really finding it, but thank you very much for the super chat. I really do appreciate it. And I'll keep trying to look for it, but unfortunately I'm not really seeing anything, but thank you very much. DAF, thank you very much for the very generous super chat. Lost 18 kg in 9 weeks so far, going strict carnivore. I'm finding it adding butter to my steak for more flavor. If I am eating 0 carb and sugar and no plants, will dietary fat from butter and meat sabotage my body fat losses? No, I don't think so at all. Fat is an essential nutrient that you need it. There are essential fatty acids, essential fat soluble nutrients that you need, that you have to have. So this is a nutrient. It's not just a calorie source. It's not just an energy source. It is so much more than that. And I mean, and there are fats like omega-6s that you don't even use as energy. So, the calorie content is pretty meaningless. So there are important things in fat that you need. No, I don't think that you're going to stall your fat loss. I think that quite the contrary, that a lot of people, when they're not eating enough fat or meat or whatever, it actually slows their metabolism, because their body's saying, oh, look, I'm not getting all the things that I need. We must be in a famine, so I'm going to slow down the metabolism. I've certainly not seen that anyway. In fact, I've seen the opposite sometimes. I've seen people, when they're trying to limit the food, their food intake, and especially their fat intake, they actually get worse, and they stall their weight loss or don't lose much. And then some people flip the other way, and they start eating too satiety, eating fatty meat until their body tells them to stop. Your body knows better than you do. Your body knows better than I do. Your body knows better than any person with an equation knows, because there's no way you're going to get a complex enough equation to figure out all of our biochemistry. And but your body knows. Your body can figure it out, and it just tells you, fatty meat tastes good, eat it. Stops tasting good, don't eat it, and just let it happen. So, and you lost 18 kg. Fabulous. That's fantastic. So no, you're not going to hurt yourself by giving your body what it requires for normal function. And I firmly believe that that's what you're doing by giving it fatty meat when you have it available and need it. So good luck with that, and I'm sure you'll do very well. Oh goodness! All right, so that's my alarm telling me to wrap it up. I'm just going to keep plugging away here and trying to get as many of these as I can in the next sort of 5-10 minutes. Aaliyah Wells, thank you for the super chat. Happy birthday to your beautiful girlfriend. This is for her birthday. Say, oh, well, thank you so much. That's very sweet of you. And yeah, well, that's very kind. I'll if she's not watching, I will let her know, and I'll tell her that you said that. And I will definitely, the plan is definitely for steak. So thank you very much for that. That's very kind of you. Jay Park, thank you so much for the super chat. How does the absence of muscle soreness with carnivore work? I remember you said a carnivore friend of yours drank coffee and instantly started getting sore from the previous workout. What does it cause exactly? Oh, that was a colleague of mine who noticed that he wasn't sore, and then he drank, and then he was just like, oh, actually, I'm starting to get sore. And I pointed in front of him. I was like, what are you drinking? And it was coffee. He's like, damn it. And it actually happened to me. I noticed that as well. It's just from the inflammatory factors that are in plants. I mean, that's how you know there's some defense chemicals and in that plant that's trying to tell you, don't eat me. I'm going to make you hurt. I'm going to make you feel bad. And hey, buddy. And and it's telling you, it's warning you away, basically. So that's those defense chemicals. That's that that inflammation that's causing, and it's and you see it, and it sort of lasts for a couple of days, and then it goes away. It's not going to be as sore as if you were eating a whole bunch of carbs and things like that. But that's what it is. It's from that inflammation. That's the plant warning you to stay away, or it's going to hurt you. Rebel Dar, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm not seeing a question. I'll try and look through, and if there's catch it if I see it. Unfortunately, it's very hard to find that, because there is quite a lot of chats, and so I don't always sort of see any of that stuff, but I do my best. Okay, so Nonk Thibodeau, I'm sure I mispronounced that. Thank you very much for the super chat. In any case, I had gastric bypass. Which supplements should I emphasize, continue, discontinue on a pure carnivore diet? I know now that I shouldn't have it, but I probably saved my life 8 years post-op. Went from 375 to 150. Wow, that's amazing. And now around 225. That happens too. Sometimes you can sort of go backwards and your stomach can stretch out again. You need the same things that you always needed, and so that all comes from steak. Now, if you've had a gastric bypass, sometimes that depending on the procedure and depending on what they're cutting out, they can cut out certain parts of your stomach that can release different factors, like intrinsic factor that binds to B12 and allows you to absorb it. So if you're low on B12 and chronically low on B12, that could be why, especially on a red meat and a bit of liver every now and then. Liver is our supplement. You don't need anything else. Just a bit of liver a couple of times a week. that solves most nutritional problems for anyone, unless you have something like this where you actually don't have the ability to make intrinsic factor anymore. You'll have to get injections or sublingual under the tongue B12. But yeah, no, if you have some sort of issue with absorption, malabsorption because of your surgery, that's 8 years ago, you presumably know what those are and just continue on with that. But you really shouldn't need anything special apart from steak and a bit of liver a couple times a week, and that should be fine. And then just check your bloods, check your B12, check your folate, check these, your iron, things like that. And if those are all normal, then that's great. You're getting everything you need from the meat that you're eating, and a bit of liver if you need it. If you're not, if your B12 is still consistently low, or maybe in the middle range of what they think is good for you, it's low. You want your B12 much higher than their reference range, is generally between 800 and 1200 in Australia, and the reference range is slightly higher for the units in America. But if you shoot for around 1,000, that's gonna be much better. So generally the reference range is much lower than that. It's because most people are chronically low on B12. So just check and see what you need, but you generally don't need anything more than liver with your steak. Rebel Dar, thank you so much for the super chat. What is the best strategy for 15K Tough Mudder? Eat fat the day before or on the day? Who is a South African researcher who has videos on this? So that would be Professor Tim Noakes, also Dr. Paul Mason in Sydney. He works with a lot of top athletes, as do I, and put them on carnivore, and their performance goes nuts. And you don't need to eat carbs. You definitely don't need to eat carbs. What's the best thing to do? Oh, and there's a South African cyclist who does all his cycles, long distance endurance cycles, fasted, and he doesn't have to refuel during his cycles. 200K, big things, and he feels great. So best thing to do is eat the day before, night before, and then go fasted the day of, and have water with you. You should be fine if you do that. I never eat the day of a competition ever. I just learned that naturally. It just made a huge difference. Never, even if it was a 7 p.m. game, I didn't eat that whole day. It was just, and I sort of started getting hunger pains and things like that when I wasn't carnivore. When I was carnivore, it didn't matter. But when I wasn't carnivore, I was sort of getting hunger pains. But every time I sort of had a bit to eat, I always regretted it. So I would eat the day before, eat a big fatty steak. The thing is, you're going to be running your Tough Mudder from the food and the fat stores that you laid down 2 weeks ago, not the day before, and certainly not the morning up, unless you're extremely emaciated. You're going to have plenty of energy, that you don't need to worry about it. It's just a matter of that mental issue of, I need this. You don't need it. You'll be fine. Eat a big meal the day before. If you want to have like a bit of tallow or something like that, you can just eat that grass-fed tallow as a refuel. You're not going to need it. You certainly don't need it before. Just eat the day before. I always play fasted, perform fasted, train fasted on an empty stomach. I always tell people, play hungry. Was our natural instinct is like, when we're hungry, we need to go kill something to eat it because we're predators, right? And so if you're out and you're in a competition and you are well fed, your natural flows are just going to say, chill out, don't do anything. If you're hungry, your body's saying you need to go and kill something now. All right, so you're going to have that edge, and you'll be much better off for it. Okay, let me go here. I'm only going to be able to do a couple more, guys. I'm going to have to leave at 11:25 because that's really cutting it close. Because I have to get out of the house at 11:30, and I still need to put clothes on, so or different clothes anyway. Wojo, thank you so much for the super chat. Elvis sang a song about the carnivore diet. It was called "Love Meat Tender." Yeah, I love meat tender too. All jokes aside, my blood sugar and other blood tests are all in the normal range now because of carnivore diet. Well, really well done, Wojo. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing. INFJ Tyrone, thank you for the super chat. I've heard it said that the body can only use ketones for 12 hours. I don't know where you've heard that, but it's wrong. Your body, actually, when you stop eating carbohydrates, your body primarily runs on ketones, and that's the metabolic state we call the fasting state. But you make sugar, you make blood sugar, you make glycogen, and you make ketones, and your body runs on ketones. So no, that's not true. That your body only can use ketones for 12 hours. Maybe there's something in particular they're talking about and whatever, but no, when you are in a fasted state, which I think is our primary metabolic state. So when you're in your primary metabolic state, you're always running on ketones. Your brain is always running on ketones, by the way, even when you're in a so-called fed state, when you're eating carbohydrates. I mean, that's been taught in biochemistry for decades. I learned it 2 decades ago that your brain always runs on ketones. It's just there aren't many available when you are eating a whole bunch of carbs and your insulin's high. But what ketones are there, your brain is running on them. And then as you get more and more ketones, your brain runs on those ketones and offsets the amount of carbs it takes in. And as soon as your brain has enough ketones, even if you have an abundance of blood sugar, it just doesn't use those at all. For most of the brain, there are certain parts of your brain that would still run on glucose, but you have glucose, so it's not a problem. So no, I have not heard that, and I do not believe that to be true, that you only run on ketones for 12 hours. In fact, that's patently false. Your brain always runs on ketones no matter what you're eating. Unless you have, frankly, zero, but that doesn't really happen. Granny Goes Carnivore, thank you so much for the super chat. What is your opinion on a little lemon juice in your water while carnivore? I don't think it's ideal. Is it the worst thing ever? Probably not. But all citrus have furan and coumarins, which are these toxins, right? So lemons are going to be no different. If you feel fine with it, fine. But I would always recommend people go 30 days at least with nothing else except meat and water, and then try one thing at a time. See how it makes you feel. If you're fine with it and you don't mind the effects, or you don't really feel any effects, go to town. But at least test. Okay, everyone, it is that time. I'm going to have to do this as just the last question. So I'm very, 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 very sorry that I couldn't get to all the other questions. If I can possibly copy these down, I will try to address them in the next session. But thank you, everyone, very much for the super chats. Thank you very much to Allison Eller for your super chat. Her question is, anything to be cautious of starting carnivore while breastfeeding or pregnant? Can it help my essential tremors? It could potentially help essential tremors, but it's, I have seen that, people have done that, but it's anecdotal at this point. But there are so many neurological issues that this diet eats, and that's actually in the literature, that ketogenic diets in general help neurological issues. So very potentially, yes. Anything to be cautious of while breastfeeding? Really just get enough food, get enough meat, get enough fat. Your baby needs fat, it needs meat, and you specifically don't want all the other things, because they will get into your breast milk and they will get into your baby. And so just eat as healthy as you can, and your breast milk will be as healthy as it can be. Have some liver too. You want a lot of nutrients, and a lot of those nutrients are going to go into your baby. So you want a lot of B12 and folate and iron and all these other sorts of things. And so having a bit of liver a couple times a week is a very good idea. And so that's what I would recommend. Okay, I'm so sorry I couldn't get to all the super chats, everyone. I really appreciate it. I'll see if I can sort of copy and paste and maybe do an additional, but I unfortunately do have to run because I'm going to be late for my appointment otherwise, my meeting otherwise. So thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate it. It's been great to see you guys. I'll have another video out this weekend, probably at the same time-ish, maybe slightly different because I'll be in France. So the time difference will be such that I'll have a play with it, but I'll probably set it at the same time. Anyway, there'll be a new podcast available on YouTube on Monday morning in the US, and Sunday, or sorry. Yeah, I can do that. Oh, I'll figure it out. Yeah, same time anyway. Sunday afternoon, evening in the US, and Monday morning in Australia. Okay, so that'll get done, or at least on Sunday. in America. I'll sort it out. But anyway, I'll post about that. But it's this Sunday anyway, guys. So please, everyone, show up for that. Show up for the premiere. And it always really helps drive the algorithm to get this out to more people. And hit the like and leave a comment. It makes a massive, massive difference. And that gets this out to more people. And then we help more people and get more people, off the off the teat of big pharma and big food. So doing all we can. So that's something that you guys can do. You can help support channels and podcasts like this, which just helps drive it out to more people so they can get help. So you actually do help a lot in that regard. So thank you very, very much, everyone. And I'll see you for the premiere. Take care.